Good evening. Welcome to your Thursday evening stroll around your celestial neighborhood. I'm Irene Pease, your friendly neighborhood astronomer, coming to you from the past to bring you the future for this summer's skies. We're just going to do kind of a short overview of some highlights, some dates to mark on your calendar, fun things that I'll go into more detail about as the summer rolls along. But mainly just to cover a few weeks I'm going to be out and about, not so much home. Some really cool things in July, and we'll just get to that right away. As usual, I'm using visuals from Stellarium, which you can find at stellarium.org, and also OpenSpace, which you can find and download for free at openspaceproject.com. So we'll pop right on over to Stellarium, see those gorgeous Brooklyn mountains, snow-capped summer mountains of Brooklyn. And this is kind of set for tonight if you're watching this, I guess, on the regular Thursday evening. But what I really want to fast forward to right away is the morning. So first fun thing that's happening is going to be in the morning. We just had a solstice, and so the sun is rising a little bit later in the morning, so not quite at the crack of dawn, but close enough. But the first fun thing I wanted to check out was July 4th. Um, so that should be just pre-dawn. If we kind of look and see, oh, there's the little bugger, Mercury. So Mercury is at its greatest western elongation, which happens when it's near the sun. It's west of the sun, but it's rising in the morning in the east just before the sun, hence west of the sun. So its greatest elongation for this round is July 4th. So for a good chance to see Mercury, that would be your best shot. So you don't even have to get up before 5. So even from like these, mountainous terrain where you don't have a particularly low horizon, here we can see around 5 o'clock local, it's already a whopping 8.5 degrees above the horizon. So Yahoo, um, or is it Wahoo? I don't know, some exclamation of excitement. But yeah, so Mercury is the tricky one because it never gets too terribly far away from the sun. Elongations, the greatest elongations, east or west, are the best time to see it. West happens in the morning, east happens in the evening. So remember east evening, or if you actually know your directions, which I, in theory, know mine, but I still get turned around. So there you go. Um, but yeah, when it's further away. Also, if we just take a quick look at some of the markings, you can notice the ecliptic is at a little bit steeper of an angle. So when you have a steeper ecliptic as opposed to it being a more gradual, so if I fast forward, they're actually just kidding, that's a steeper angle there. So we have more, when you have more of a glancing angle, it's a little bit trickier, and we can see Mercury's a little bit off the ecliptic now, but anywho, check that out. July 4th should be a fun thing. We'll just get rid of our ecliptic for now. The next fun thing coming up will be in the evening. So we'll turn ourselves back around and look over towards our western sky. That's where the evening sunsetty stuff happens. And zip through to our evening sky. So you've probably noticed Venus and maybe also a little bit of Mars in the evening sky. You got to keep reminding people to look for those because they're planets and they're fun. Um, so the exciting thing that's happening there, planet-wise, um, is we have a nice conjunction of Venus and Mars. So we're going to kind of see a little bit later in the evening. And that's going to happen on a special date for New Yorkers and a special date in my family. The closest date, I believe, is actually going to be the 12th. So they're pretty close, both the 12th and the 13th. So the 12th, there they are on the 13th, a little bit further away, but still probably picture worthy. On the 12th, the moon is a little bit closer. The 11th, it's They're kind of in a line there. So if you want to get the moon as well, there'll be a very thin crescent moon. They're on the 11th, but the 12th is going to be our closest view of Mars and Venus from the New York City area, and then they'll still be pretty close together on the 13th. Still, I think, less than 2 degrees. Let's find out. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's only half a degree. So they're still only half a degree apart um, here. So pretty great view. Expect lots of nice pictures or just, fun to check that out. Also, July 12th is the last day for Manhattanhenge. So if you haven't seen Manhattanhenge, the sunset version, that will be your last day to try to view it as the sun is just kissing the horizon at sunset right along the grid of Manhattan. That's not the last henge for the year because there's also a sunrise Manhattanhenge, but you have to get up at the crack of dawn and in the freezing cold of like winter or nearly winter. So more on that later in the year. The other fun thing that's kind of like solar system-y that's coming up, of course, is August. In August, we have the Perseids. Um, and that's actually going to be a pretty good view. They peak right around, what is it, the 12th of August, 13th. Yes, so just a month after our little conjunction, we have kind of a peak for the Perseids. Those are kind of a late night viewing thing. You want to view them a little bit later when the radiant, that point that they seem to come from, is higher in the sky. So you can see we're at like 2 o'clock in the morning. The great thing about the Perseids for this year is that we'll have a great moon phase. So if we go back just a few hours, we can see, oh yeah, there's a nearly full moon. Or just kidding, not full, about a quarter-ish, so it's 5-inch days old. So it'll be setting relatively early. So great moon phase, not a whole lot of moon. It's setting early in the evening, well before midnight. And so if you're staying up late, we'll have the Perseids there. Also, you'll notice that Jupiter and Saturn are going to be out in the evening, basically through July, from the end of July-ish and then onward. So really great having those out. So it's nice having those because they're such great targets. So if you haven't seen them, I know I'll be talking about them a lot more in like our weekly skies chats. But yeah, lots of planets for the summer. And just to kind of get a sense of what that looks like in 3D, I wanted to pop back on over to OpenSpace and just take a quick look. I think sometimes it's hard to see some of the lines, but in OpenSpace, this is all real data. So we're basically visualizing what things would look like if we were out in space somewhere. So we can kind of see the orbits of the planets as they go around the sun. And I kind of want to just get like this bird's eye view of the solar system for a moment here. So we can kind of suss out like what's happening with these planetary conjunctions and things. So I think it's great to see it in 3D. So first of all, we note that all the planets kind of move around the sun in kind of like a big plane, right? So if we look at the solar system, we can kind of look edge on and we can see all those lines. They mostly line up. These are the orbits of the planets, so Mercury, Venus, interior to Earth, between us and the sun, and then Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. I don't really talk a whole lot about Uranus and Neptune because they're generally not visible to the naked eye. Uranus technically is if you have a really dark sky and you know where to look. Every now and then you can see that with the naked eye. It's pretty faint. Neptune, not really ever. But yeah, so mostly we're looking at Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn in our skies. So we can see kind of where Earth is right about now. And so Earth is the end of this blue streak. And we saw that we have a conjunction between Venus and Mars coming up. We said July 4th. So here's where we have Venus, and out here is location of Mars, relatively speaking. So if I go ahead and fast forward to July 4th, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, something like that. If you were over at the location of Earth, you can imagine, oh, oops, oops, whoops, whoops, go back. Just go flying off into, space. If only rockets work that way. So you can see Earth and Venus and Mars kind of line up, right? So if you're on Earth and you're looking off in this direction, you're going to see Venus and Mars pretty close together there. So that's the conjunction. So they're nowhere near each other in space, of course, right? They have very different orbits. Mars is much further away, but they're just kind of along the same line of sight when we have a conjunction. Yeah. And then the other thing we can notice is Mercury. If you can see this thin line in here, Mercury going around the sun. So if we just kind of flip through time a few days, Mercury, actually, I'm just going to turn on time to have it go. Just let it run a little bit. So as Mercury is making its way around the sun, sometimes it appears kind of behind the sun from our perspective. Sometimes it's kind of between us and the sun. So that's kind of where it is now-ish. But every now and then it's kind of at right angles. So this was the western elongation, and then this over here, this is going to be happening in September, so technically still summer before our next equinox. So that'll be the next elongation. Will be in September, and that'll be in the evening. That'll be the eastern elongation in the evening. So Mercury goes through a couple of elongations each year because it's zipping around the sun so quickly. Venus has a more similar orbital period to Earth, so we don't see it having its elongations nearly as regularly. We'll get like one, maybe two a year. So maybe one on each side if we're lucky in a given year. And then the last thing I had mentioned was the Perseids. I think I've done a whole thing about the Perseids meteor shower, and I'll talk more about that and how that relates to space debris intersecting the Earth's orbit. Really, the Earth's orbit is moving through that space debris, and we move through it just that one time of year in August. The other thing that I wanted to look at, though, in open space while we're here is if we just kind of pan around and look for the plane of the Milky Way, right? So one of the things that we're going to see in the summer is we have a very bright Milky Way. And actually, if we look this way, actually go ahead and focus back on the Earth. Go to Earth and go to now. Jump through time. Boom. All right. So if we come kind of back into the Earth, we notice that for right now, if we're looking towards the sun, like so during the daytime, we have like Orion out. That's part of what we generally think of as being a winter constellation. But I'm just going to brighten up the Milky Way a little bit here, I think. Nope, not that. Different Milky Way. Yeah, so artificially, woo! All right, so kind of highlighting the Milky Way. So the sun is over currently kind of in the part of the sky that where we would see our winter Milky Way. But if we turn around and look at the rest of it, so if we're looking away from the sun, so if you zoom into Earth, we can see this is the sunlit side of Earth. So on the other side, they're seeing all this, right? So the night side of Earth is seeing like this beautiful, brighter part of the Milky Way where we see these dark streaks and stuff. So that's basically the plane of the galaxy. So the plane of galaxy is kind of like this. And if we, I think I can turn on my constellation lines and zoom out. So another fun thing we can do in open space is kind of show just where we are in the galaxy. All right, so here we are, those little spiky things, those are all the different stars that we see in our night sky at all different times of year, right? So this time of year, the Earth is over kind of more on, on this side of the sun. So in our night sky, we are looking in the plane of the galaxy, we can see this bright stuff. Whereas in the winter, then we're going to be kind of over on the other side of the sun, kind of this side of the sun, right, facing off this way as we're looking into our night. So we see a thinner view of the galaxy. So the Milky Way kind of rings our sky, but some of it you can only see from the northern hemisphere, some of it you can only see from the southern hemisphere. And actually the brightest part is highest in the sky if you're in the southern hemisphere. Because again, if we zoom in, you can see that the Milky Way and the plane of the solar system don't exactly align. So starting to digress a little bit, I don't want to get too much into like seasons and things. But you can see the plane of the solar system, that's where all those orbits are. And then the plane of the galaxy, right? So there's some parts of the Milky Way, basically this part. So here we're looking kind of down onto Earth's North Pole. So this is the view that we would be able to see from the southern hemisphere that we can't see from the northern hemisphere. And if we flip and turn around and look the other way, so now we're looking down on Earth's South Pole, just from very, very far away. This is the part of the sky that you can see from the north, but not so much from the south. So I do kind of want to just point out a couple, hopefully this didn't break it, of the super fun constellations. So we like to play connect the dots and look at some of the shapes that we see in our night sky. And a lot of the ones that I want to focus on are just kind of along the plane of the Milky Way. And again, I'll get into more detail with these kind of down the road, closer to date, and focus on different things. But the big parts of the sky, one would be the summer triangle. So you can see kind of 3 bright stars up here. There's a lot, but the 3 brightest ones are in 3 different constellations. So Vega in Lyra the Harp, Deneb in the tail of Cygnus the Swan, and Altair in Aquila the Eagle. So those are 3 stars from 3 constellations, and the Milky Way is running right along the triangle that's kind of outlined by those 3 stars. It's not really outlined, it's verticed. Those are the vertices, the edges, the pointy bits, not the edges, pointy bits, the corners. Vertices is just a fancy, vertices and edge. Is it apex? What's the fancy word for a corner? Somebody let me know, because I'm spacing on it right now. The other really cool part is going to be, other than the summer triangle, is going to be where this kind of bulge is. So even here you can see like little pink blobs. Those are going to be some awesome dark sky objects, some deep sky objects you can see, mainly nebulae, so huge star-forming regions are the main types of nebulae that you can see along the plane of the Milky Way in the summertime. And that's kind of nestled between these 2 constellations, Sagittarius, which is drawn here as a centaur, so like a half man, half horse with bow and arrow, but actually it looks like a teacup, we'll get there, and the Scorpion. Scorpion. Oh yeah. So back to Stellarium. If we look up in our Stellarium skies, here we can see Milky Way. There's the bright part of the Milky Way. And if we zoom into the south, like we just saw, we have this teapot shape. So there's an outline of a teapot with some other stuff sticking off of it, right? There's the little handle and the lid and the spout. And then the Milky Way kind of looks like steam coming out of the teapot. There's also this little bit, so we sometimes call it a teaspoon. It's like a little spoon if you ignore this line here. It's a little teaspoon. And I always try to catch the moon when it's just above the teaspoon. So it's like drop a lot of lunar sweetness into your coffee there. Um, so that's Sagittarius, and then Scorpius kind of looks like a big palm tree rising if we kind of go back in time a little bit. It's pretty low on our horizon. It's pretty far south. Um, but if I take away these, I'm gonna just go ahead and draw this in one of these days. There's like, if this is like a palm tree, like this is the tree part to the side, and this is the stem, the trunk of a palm tree, the palms. I don't know. Imagination. And then there's the stinger of the scorpion if you get that far. So if you're in a dark site and you can see the Milky Way, then you will notice that there's like kind of these constellations on either side. Make it a little bit darker, get rid of the moon. Yeah, nice, bright Milky Way. Um, so kind of the southern part of the Milky Way that we'll be seeing from New York City area is a keyword there. So go out far from the city to see all this detail and all these little blobs. So that's a fun part just to scan with binoculars. And then again, the other part that we'll be looking at these days is starting to rise basically in the east. Everything rises in the east. So I don't know why I specified that, but anywho, just a reminder, things rise in the east, unless it's a satellite. Um, but yeah, if you're looking out around 10 o'clock, it's, yeah, still kind of in the east, getting higher in the east as the summer progresses, is that summer triangle. So again, Vega, the bright star in Lyra. Let's put those on. Lyra, and then Deneb is the tail of Cygnus the swan. The swan's kind of flying right along the Milky Way. And then Altair and Aquila the eagle. It's kind of like a big kite. So if you can find those three stars and then start to find the constellations around those, we'll use that as a reference and a marker for some other things that we look for over the summer. But those are some of our big summer constellations, Summer Triangle, and then Sagittarius and Scorpius. So we will be focusing on those and some of the fun things in there all through the summer. That's the plan. So just a few things to get you going. Thanks for checking in, and we'll be back with more detail every week or so. Stay tuned for updates on that. Again, I'm Irene Pease, your friendly neighborhood astronomer. Thanks so much for tuning in to your preview of the summer skies. And again, just the visuals, if you're interested in downloading those, you can find them and use them yourself. Stellarium, you can find at stellarium.org, and OpenSpace, you can find at openspaceproject.com. I'll be back in a couple weeks with an actual live show again. Promise, promise. So until then, clear skies, be safe out there, and if you haven't yet, go get vaccinated.